On the 4th of September, 1941, a single-engine aircraft touched down in a dark field near Issoudun, south of Orleans. It was painted matte black, no markings, inside. The rear cockpit sat a British spy. The pilot cut the engines. He had 2 minutes. That was the total time allocated for this impossible mission: land, swap one agent for another, and get airborne before German searchlights found him. The aircraft was called the Westland Lysander. It was slow. It was vulnerable. It could barely outrun a truck, and it was about to become the most crucial aircraft in Britain's secret war against Nazi-occupied France. Most people never heard of it. That's because what the Lysander did happened in darkness, in fields no map recorded, in operations that couldn't be acknowledged even after the war ended. But for the men and women of the Special Operations Executive, SOE, the organization Churchill created to wage a clandestine war, the Lysander wasn't just transportation. It was lifeline. It was escape. It was the only aircraft designed to land on a postage stamp and deliver live agents directly into the hands of Nazi-occupied Europe. This is the story of how a plane that was supposed to be obsolete became irreplaceable. When the Lysander first entered RAF service in 1938, it was designed for one purpose: Army cooperation. It was meant to fly low over battlefields, spot enemy movements, communicate with ground troops. It was good at that job. And then the war started and everything changed. When the Germans invaded France in 1940, Lysander proved useless in combat. It was slow, maximum speed around 160 miles per hour. It had almost no armor. Pilots got shot to pieces flying them. By the time France fell in the summer of 1940, the RAF had lost hundreds of Lysanders. The aircraft was finished, obsolete. The RAF wanted to use the surviving ones for air-sea rescue, dropping life rafts to downed pilots in the Channel. Button, London, Winston Churchill's newly formed Special Operations Executive saw something different. They looked at the Lysander's most unusual feature: its ability to land and take off in impossibly short distances. The wheels could touch ground in fewer than 250 meters. The high-wing design gave pilots clear sight lines below. The aircraft was slow, yes, but that was actually an asset for the work SOE had in mind. SOE needed something that could land in a field at night, unload a spy, pick up an agent who needed extraction, and vanish before the Gestapo realized what had happened. No other aircraft in the world could do this. Not the bombers, not the fighters, only the Lysander. By August of 1941, Number 138th Squadron RAF Special Duties was officially formed. Its mission was simple and lethal: deliver secret agents into occupied France and bring them back out alive. A few months later, in February 1942, Number 161 Squadron was created. With the same task, these squadrons flew from RAF, Northweld, and other bases. Every aircraft was painted flat black. Every flight was timed to within a week of the full moon. Pilots needed moonlight to navigate over occupied territory, to spot their landing fields, to see if a German patrol had discovered their drop zone. The Lysanders carried extra fuel, tanks. In the rear cockpit, space that was designed for one passenger was squeezed to fit 2 agents when necessary. Though the discomfort was extreme, there was a fixed ladder welded to the fuselage so agents could scramble in and out in seconds. Then came the 4th of September, 1941, the first real mission. A Lysander, piloted by a British officer, lifted off into the darkness. Below, an agent lay, hidden in a field near Issoudun, waiting to be picked up. It had taken weeks of coordination. Resistance fighters on the ground had arranged the field. They'd lit a signal. The pilot found it. He descended through the night, landing wheels down on soil that might have been a minefield or a trap. 2 minutes. That was the window. Get the agent aboard. Release the other agent already in the aircraft. Take off. The Lysander climbed back into the darkness. On the ground, the signal fires died. By morning, 200 kilometers away, the pilot was landing in England. The agent who'd been in occupied France was now in free territory. The agent being delivered had vanished into the night. No one got shot. No one got captured. 63 times during the entire war, this exact operation succeeded. Over the course of the next 3 years, Lysanders would bring 129 agents out of France. They would land 102 agents inside. 63 landings. Nearly 230 human lives transformed by 2 minutes on a dark field. Each mission was a negotiation with death. Each pilot knew that landing a Lysander in occupied territory made them the most visible target on Earth. They were slow enough to shoot. They couldn't fight back. The Gestapo had standing orders. If a Lysander appeared, destroy it. Some landings were conducted under German small arms fire. One mission lasted only 12.5 seconds on the ground. 12.5 seconds to drop an agent, take on a replacement, and accelerate enough to clear the trees before German bullets found the fuselage. One pilot, Flying Officer James Bathgate of the Royal New Zealand Air Force, never made it home. On the 11th of December, 1943, his Lysander was jumped by German flak. It went down near a place called La Ville au Bois les Ponts-Verts. Bathgate was killed. His French army passenger was killed. That was it. Across the entire war, across all 63 landings, only one Lysander was lost to the enemy. Only one pilot paid the ultimate price. The arithmetic of the mission was brutal. One death to save 230 lives. Of the 418 so agents deployed into France during the war, 118 were killed, captured, interrogated, executed by the Gestapo or the Cost SS. Their names are carved into the Valençay Memorial in France. But Lysander pilots and their agents prevented something worse. They didn't just deliver spies. They delivered hope. They delivered weapons. They delivered the knowledge that Britain hadn't forgotten France, that there was still a path to resistance. One of those agents was a young woman named Violette Sabo. She was 23 years old. She was reputedly the best shot in the entire SOE. In April of 1944, she boarded a Lysander and flew into a field near Rouen. Her mission was to evaluate whether the local resistance had the capability to support the coming Normandy invasion. She landed safely. She moved through occupied France. She was extracted safely on the same aircraft. She made it back to England. The mission was a success, but success came with a cost most people don't remember. A few months later, Violette volunteered for another mission. On that second operation, she was captured by SS troops. She was executed. She never knew the invasion she'd helped coordinate had succeeded. The story of Violette Sabo and the Lysander is the story of the entire secret war in France. It was small. It was dangerous. It was won and lost by individuals making impossible decisions in seconds. Pilots deciding whether the landing field was safe enough. Agents deciding whether to trust the person offering to hide them. Commanders deciding whether the intelligence was real or a German trap. The Lysander was just an aircraft. Butet was the aircraft that made everything possible. Across the war, number 138 Squadron alone flew over 2,500 missions. They dropped 29,000 containers of supplies. They dropped 10,000 packages of weapons and ammunition and explosives. They delivered 995 agents directly to the field. Total aircraft lost 70. In the larger RAF, those numbers would be insignificant. But for the secret war, they were catastrophic. Each lost aircraft meant a whole network exposed. Each pilot shot down meant interrogation by the Gestapo. Each burned-out fuselage was a piece of the resistance movement gone silent. Yet the missions continued. Every night that conditions allowed full moon, clear weather, no German fighter activity, the Lysanders flew. The reason they survived at all was that they did the one thing the Luftwaffe never expected. They refused to fight. German fighters were faster. German flak was more accurate. The Lysanders' only advantage was invisibility. Fly low. Fly at night. Fly when no one was looking. Ghetto, the field, land, get out. The Lysander pilots were not heroes in the wrist. Sense that fighter pilots were heroes. They didn't dogfight. They didn't score kills. They simply showed up, did their job, and came home 375 times. After D-Day, the Lysanders' role changed. The fields in northern France became accessible to larger aircraft. The need for clandestine insertions dropped off. By late 1944, the secret war was becoming the conventional war. Lysanders were reassigned. Some towed targets for air-to-air gunnery training. Some dropped life rafts. Some were simply retired. The aircraft that had been declared obsolete in 1940, that had been written off by the RAF as useless, had become the most irreplaceable tool in Britain's arsenal for precisely one task: moving human beings across occupied territory in darkness. Here's what made the Lysander story so unusual. It wasn't designed for espionage. It wasn't optimized for special operations. It wasn't the product of some brilliant engineer who predicted future needs. It was a mediocre aircraft that happened to have one very useful feature: short takeoff and landing, that became indispensable at exactly the moment the RAF needed it most. The Lysander story is the story of improvisation. It's the story of taking what you have and making it essential. It's the story of pilots and agents willing to trust their lives to 2 minutes on a dark field, knowing that one searchlight meant death. Of the 175 Lysanders sent into action across the entire war, 88 were shot down. 30 more were destroyed on the ground. That's a loss rate of roughly 64%. In the air, that's catastrophic. For a bomber formation, that would mean the entire force is wiped out. For a fighter squadron, that would mean replacement pilots every few months. But the Lysander pilots knew these odds. When they volunteered, they flew anyway. They showed up. They did the job. The night of the 4th of September, 1941, when that first Lysander touched down near Issoudun, it was the beginning of something that would consume 3 years of the war. It was an operation conducted in silence. No newspaper reported it. No newsreel showed it. The men and women involved couldn't talk about it. Bhutan, hundreds of farmyards and forest clearings, and remote corners of occupied France, agents were landed and extracted. Networks were built. Resistance cells were supplied. The groundwork for the liberation of France was laid, one Lysander mission at a time. The cost was high. 118 agents died. 70 aircraft were lost. But the Lysander proved something that seems simple now, but was revolutionary then. Sometimes the most important tool in war isn't the fastest or the most heavily armed. Sometimes it's the aircraft nobody wanted, flown by pilots nobody asked to be heroes, carrying agents who just wanted to come home alive. Sometimes it's the plane that lands, on a postage stamp in the dark. The question this raises is one that everyone involved in the secret war faced. How do you measure success in an operation no one's supposed to know about? How do you calculate the value of an aircraft that never fired a shot, never scored a kill, never appeared in official war reports? The answer is in those 230 lives. The answer is in the networks that survived. The answer is in the information that flowed back to London. The Lysander's mission was invisible, and its success was measured in the absence of failure, in pilots who came home, in agents who lived. In another night, where one searchlight didn't find the field, and everything went dark again. But there's another part of this story that's been forgotten. While the British were running Lysanders into France, the Nazis were building their own covert aircraft designed to ferry the Reich's most dangerous secrets. Aircraft that could land on water, that could land on snow, that could operate from places no other plane could reach. Next time, we're going to look at the planes the Nazis built for exactly this purpose, the aircraft that Hitler's intelligence services used to move classified documents, spies, and defectors across the war. The aircraft that could carry just one passenger, no more. And if it was shot down, everything was lost. Subscribe so you don't miss it. Thanks for watching.